Welcome to Open Up Listen. We have two special guests. We have Jakima and Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, would you like to introduce yourself first?
I'm Kerry Howard. I'm an attorney in Ohio, um, by career, and I am the CEO and founder of Greenbridge Consulting, which is a public safety consulting company. My legal experience is I've been a city prosecutor, county prosecutor, federal prosecutor, most formally safety director for the city of Cleveland.
It's my turn. So
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Jakima Dye. I am the CEO of Greenbridge Consulting, which is a public safety consulting company, which is what Carrie mentioned. I was a former employee with the city of Cleveland, where I worked for almost 14 years. I am a woman, mother, and just overall, I'm just trying to do my part to make society better in whatever way that can be.
Right on. And I'm Dom, your host. We're gonna get right into it. So this is this question. Tell me what you guys think. What's the first thought you usually wake up in the morning?
So I'll go first. So my first thought when I wake up in the morning, for me, it's very important that I ground myself. So my first thought in the morning is, what am I going to do today to make sure I stay grounded? How am I going to start this day to ensure that? So I wake up and I am automatically like saying what I'm thankful for. Um, Thankful for things that go wrong, thankful for things that go right, and all the in between. And then I think back and just look around me. So I try to do this exercise where I look at what I can see, smell, hear, what use my whole five senses to count it down. And that kind of centers me. And then that's what I think about. It's like how to keep myself grounded with all that's going on, especially with all that's going on. There's a lot going on in society right now. So that's how I start my day.
Dom, one of the things is I have been transitioning into the what I think about in the morning when I wake up. So generally, when I would wake up about my to-do list, um, and then I had a question like, "What is it? What am I accomplishing?" When people wake up, I think they think about, because this is what I thought about, was just what do I need to do to survive the day to get done. But I wasn't thinking about, I guess, the legacy or future. If you think about it in terms of a house, what are you building? What bricks are you going to lay down? What rooms are you going to work on? So I started waking up thinking about, legacy and future, especially since we found Greenbridge Consulting. What bricks are we laying down to build a sound structure for that business? So I started changing it and started thinking about, first, grateful for waking up in the morning, and then what do I need to do to start building this house of legacy? And start laying down those bricks, because for the past several years I've woken up and done things, but there's been really no fruit at the end,
Mm.
and that's because we've just been building bricks and throwing them away as opposed to stacking them up orderly towards the future.
Okay, and this is kind of for both of you guys. So with both of you guys answer, would you say does it bring peace or does it bring pressure?
I think it brings more peace. There is some pressure in building a future, right? But there's also some peace in knowing that you're waking up, accomplishing things that's going to build something, um, build a goal at the end.
Mm.
So my thoughts are, for me, I'm going to be honest. I feel like the last 3 weeks of my life, I've kind of transitioned into a more peaceful mind space. I think prior to these 3 weeks, I was definitely waking up every day feeling pressured. Definitely feeling pressured. Just pressure to sustain a household by myself, pressure to get all these tasks done, pressure to figure out what I'm going to be doing in the future. That's one of the reasons why I changed the way I wake up and started thinking about life more holistically. And in that, I learned that your mind and the way you think about things affects how you move about life. So for me now, waking up and centering myself brings me more peace.
Mm. Okay, so how would you guys deal with, let's just say, like, for what you guys are saying as far as waking up, dealing with building brick by brick, having peace as well as purpose. So how would you guys deal with when it comes to how can I say this? When it comes to different variables that come into play. Like for example, you say you're a single mom, so let's just say, you pretty much have your task to do, and then there's something that gets thrown in, originally thrown in, that throws your whole thing off. How do you guys handle the influx of change?
So I
So I guess I
oh
can
good.
go first. For me, change is the one thing that's constant. It's the one that go ahead, Carrie. It seemed like one of us was going in and out.
Okay, so yeah, I think
Can y'all
change
hear
is
me?
constant. Yeah, we can
Mhm.
hear you now. You were freezing just a little bit. Um, I think change is constant. I mean, you can't really plan for
Can
variables,
y'all hear me?
but you can't let it shake you either. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when those things pop up, um, you've got to address them. I mean, I can tell you, like during our time in public safety, and Jakima can speak to it as well, is that we would come in, with a list of things to do, meetings we were going to have, and there'd be a huge fire with fatalities. There'd be a police involved shooting. You know, we'd be called into meetings that we didn't plan for. Same thing as we work with Greenbridge, different opportunities pop up, and you got to take advantage of those opportunities. So you can't always stay the course.
Mhm.
Um, and some things you may have to carry over the next day or pull some extra hours at the end of the day to get some of those things accomplished. But you just have to roll with it. It's life.
Kim, were you gonna say something? Okay. Well, while Jakeem's working on the camera, I was going to say, so with that, because I know, based off what you said, you pretty much just roll. So for those people who may struggle with, you know, some people that freaks out when either adversity hit or when change end up happening, how would you say that? Like, what advice would you give to them?
I would say, embrace the adversity. If we all, I think that most of us want to be stronger, we want to be better people,
Mhm.
right? And nothing worth working for comes easily. So those moments of adversity, sometimes while you're in the storm, or after you come out of it, you really got to sit back and ask yourself, okay, what am I supposed to be learning, or what should I have learned from that? Be grateful for it. It's I've known folks who have the why me mentality, and the common response is, well, why not you? And
Mhm.
something that I didn't address during my introduction, I'm a Marine Corps veteran and I'm an officer in the Air Force as well, is that in order for you to get better and your resolve to get stronger, you really need to go through things. So those challenges are a blessing in a lot of ways. So you just have to take the time and just identify the blessings.
Absolutely. I will definitely concur because I think that experience is the best teacher, and a lot of times if you don't go through things and you pretty much is everything is good. So for example, for a person who everything is good, they didn't have to go through adversity. When they go through adversity, they may literally crumble, their life will crumble, or I know people that will be, they didn't have to go through that. And the first thing they had, they'll either freak out, or some will turn to drugs or turn to different things because they don't know how to necessarily handle adversity. So I think that was well said. This experience helped teach you, but in that experience, the hope is that you are able to navigate it and not look at it as the world is ending, but look at it as a blessing, because there's always something at the end, as long as you continue to put one foot in front of the other, there's something in the end that will be able to help you for something later on in your life. We just don't be knowing because we look at the now instead of understanding it's preparing us for the future.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what came to my mind when you were talking was there's this saying that hard times make hard men make soft times make soft men make soft times, kind of thing, right? So you really got to take the time and focus on those things, and to help you get through these things, a mentor. I don't think you're ever too old to have a mentor. Somebody who you to bounce it off. You don't need to go through hardships alone. You need somebody to talk to.
Schema?
So I didn't hear the question. I was having some technical difficulties over here.
No, well, it was the original pretty much thing. What would you do when it comes to you having pretty much a little bit of adversity that's thrown your way, and pretty much how would you deal with it? And as well, I know it's a lot. How would you give advice to people who may struggle with um change?
So yeah, I had started saying the one thing that's constant in life is change. So we should really expect that. Um, but I also think that we have to be flexible. I think we have to be flexible in our ideology, because inflexibility is where you run into these issues. And now, to me, that's the people who struggle with adversity, because they think things are supposed to go this way, this way, this way, and when they don't, it upsets the whole world. We always have to be willing to recalibrate. We have to know how to recalibrate and when to recalibrate. I think one of the things that I have done, or I'm not gonna say I've done because I didn't do it intentionally, but one of the things that life has done for me is taught me how to be prepared to recalibrate at any moment, because things can and will go wrong. More often than not, things will go wrong. And it's not about what happens, it's how you respond to it. So if I had to give someone a bit of advice on how to do it, it would be things go happen, whether you expect them or not. It's not what happens that changes how you move forward. It's how you react to the stimulus you're given. So I'm a firm believer that life is all about it's it's this note that my teacher had when I think I was in third grade, and it stuck with me forever. It said that life was 92% attitude and 8% effort. And so she used to tell me that that means the way what you think about and the way you approach life. And I didn't get it until I was like super grown. But once I got it, it was like, okay, so life is pretty much what you think and how you respond to what's happening. And that's the lesson I'll give somebody, or that's what the advice I'll tell somebody. It's gonna happen anyway. Just wrap your mind around the idea that it's gonna happen and be prepared to adjust when it does.
That's good. Go for real good. Well, speaking of knowledge, and you mentioned a teacher, what knowledge sits at the center of your decisions?
So I guess I can go first. What knowledge? My lived experiences. um, Everything that I do, ultimately, we are a product of every experience that we've had, right? Like, so everything that I've experienced in life influences my every decision. One of the things that I've recently learned is the benefits of being present. I am very much I play chess in life, I feel like. So I don't look at just one thing. I'm like, if I do this, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. I'm always like 5 or 6 steps ahead. And because I'm 5 or 6 steps ahead, I miss what's happening right in front of my face. I don't miss it, but I don't pay as much attention to it. So being present has changed that for me. So that's one of the things that I feel like my wisdom is rooted in my lived experiences and being present.
Yeah, I think that it's similar for me. I think that there's you talked about what going through adversity and what it means. Is that I grew up poor like other folks, similar situations. Um, you know, Family going in food lines, parents selling blood to make ends meet, things of that nature. And you don't have to. Hard times don't make us crumble. Whereas folks who kind of grew up with that silver spoon, they grew up with everything always taken care of. When things go bad, they really get shaken. I mean, you saw like history, they talk about how when the stock market crashed, how people was committing suicide. When the stock market crashed, that just means we got to eat bologna and cereal for a little bit. So it's not that bad. So I like to bring those totality of circumstances that I've lived, the roads that I've traveled, and navigated with that, because you learn to navigate things with street smarts, with book smarts, with common sense from your experiences. So I agree with Jakima. Your lived experiences is really what forms the ideas that you orbit around.
And would you guys think that knowledge liberates you, or would you think that it limits you?
It liberates. I think it gives you more options. You know, you know how to. Let me say this: like when you go grocery shopping, some folks, they never had to check for the price. But I've been that person who hasn't had to check for the price, and I've been that person who has to go in there and look at the price. So that by that, I use that example because it broadens the options that you have available to you. It broadens the weapons that you have to make it through things. So I think it's a bit of freedom in that.
So my thoughts are, it's both. I think it cuts both ways. And the reason I say that is, first I'm going to lead with, typically I'm a dual perspective type of person. So I think it's fair that I put that out there first. But I think it cuts both ways, because I think that my lived experiences does make me better suited to make better decisions, as Carrie stated. It puts me in perspective that, because I've been the girl who grew up in the projects to now the girl who has suburban kids, right? I can see things both ways. And so I'm able to make some decisions that some people couldn't make. But at the same time, because of my experiences, I think I am a bit too cautious. And so I think there is some benefit in like ignorance being bliss. So if something you've never
Mm.
experienced, so it's something you never experienced, something you know how to prepare yourself for, and are you too reserved to even get out there to try it? And so that's why I think it can cut both ways.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to kind of expound on that. It kind of goes with, like for example, when I decided to go to college instead of staying where I was pretty much in, pretty much the neighborhood or whatever, it broadened my horizon because I was able to see other things that I would not have saw, in my environment. And I will say your knowledge can be limited, because if that's all you know in this bubble, you're gonna stay in that bubble. So you kind of will be limited to what you know based off of your knowledge and experience as far as what you grew up in. So you become somewhat of a product of your environment. So I could get where it could be both as well. That's a good point.
Yeah. Because it's like for me, right? I grew up in a neighborhood where people would probably call it crabs in a barrel, right? No one was going
Mm.
anywhere fast. We didn't see people going to college. That was not normal for us. When I graduated, a bunch of us made it to college, but not hardly any of us went to college. I am not proud to say I did leave. I did leave to go to college, but it was so foreign to me that I came back. But that's one of those things, right? Like I was pigeonholed by my thoughts and my knowledge and the wisdom that I had and what I had been exposed to. So I came back. That said, I lived a little bit and then left again, and I was able to see a broader horizon. Like you said, like it opened my mind up to things that I would have never seen. And since then, my mind has been opening up to the point that even when my surroundings are limited, I take the initiative to go and find things out myself. Like I'm going to go look for it. So I'm always trying to learn. I'm always going to so I'm not bound by my walls anymore. But on the other hand, is like those walls restrict me from being ignorant and just diving in there. Like I don't have the impulsive decision to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it. Because my mind is like, wait, let's think this through. And
Mm.
that comes from like the wisdom. So that's why I think it can cut both ways.
Yeah.
Okay, name one thing that you feel obligated to do, but deep down you know is no longer aligned with, you know, what you do or who you are. And it could be rather life, it could be relationship, it could be family, like different decisions that you or things that you've been a part of.
Oh, Jakeem, that's a deep one. You can go first on that.
I was the one thinking. Okay,
I need a minute.
so let me see where I can go with that. I can go so many ways in that, but I'm gonna say something that's probably not the most favorable thing to say. One of the things is that I was taught to treat people how I would want to be treated,
Mm,
right? Treat people how you would want to be treated, and that is what I've always done. And so I treat people so good, like I'm so good to people, and they, it more often than not, it doesn't work out in my favor. Sorry. And so what I have to do is, what I've learned is that don't treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people how they want to be treated. Right? Like that's a big difference because how I want to be treated is not the way somebody else want to be treated. But it's one of those things that's been ingrained in me. Like treat people like this. And I'm gonna give you another one. If you do good, good comes back to you. I do believe that. I still believe that. And let me be clear, I still believe that. But I think sometimes we get so caught up in doing good and trying to get some good back. Or maybe we just doing it because it's out the kindness of our heart. Because right now I think it's out the kindness of my heart to do it, whether I get something back or not. But I think doing good all the time no longer aligns with me because it has shown me that I've had family burn me from doing good. So it's one of those things that I'm still learning and I'm still feeling my way through. But those are the two things that I'll say are things that I was taught and that was ingrained in me that don't really align with who I am anymore. You up,
yeah, so
Karen?
I had to grab a notebook because there's a couple things, right? Because it's like once you start thinking about this, it's like it starts rolling in. So first one is, they think people say the truth shall set you free. I don't believe in that. I don't believe the truth sets you free. I think it's how the truth is received is what's the person who is hearing it. I want to give an example, then I move on to just the second one. You're in court, you think, the truth is going to set me free. Your Honor, I did it. Right? You're going to jail, right? So it's kind of like you can tell you can tell the truth, but it's like, what is the impact of on the hearer, right? Because you may have a judge who's like, and I appreciate you telling me that, and I appreciate you taking responsibility. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to send you to, you're going to get locked up, or I'm going to give you a reduced fine, or I'm going to reduce the time that I was going to give you because you took responsibility, right? Or you may have somebody who, if they receive it and they feel like, okay, good, we can avoid a trial, max sentence. So I don't think that the truth sets you free. I think it's the effect on the person who receives the truth. Because you can tell the truth and the truth can be offensive to some folks. I mean, we live in America. When we talk about the truth of the American justice system, when we talk about the truth of the foundation of the American government, when we talk about slavery, civil rights, the crimes against Native Americans, it's all truth. And some folks don't want to hear it. So, as a matter of fact, some folks twist it and make it a negative, and they call it, woke. When all woke is mean that you know the truth, and aren't afraid to speak it. So folks, there's a group of folks who have specifically and expressly stated we don't want to talk about the truth. And then the other one is, and I want to piggyback off of, it kind of aligns with what Jakima was saying. Don't treat people how you want to be treated. I think that a twist to what Jakima was saying is that make sure that people treat you the way you want to be treated. So if somebody talks down to you, tell them, pause, you're not going to talk to me that way. It's 48 Laws of Power says that if you want to be treated like royalty, walk like royalty. And at the same time, when you think about royalty, a king is not going to sit on a throne and let you talk to him or a queen, her, crazy. They are going to correct you and make sure that they do. So when people are treating you a particular way and you don't want to be treated that way, you need to tell them. because nobody's going to stand up for you like you. And I think those are the two things that really resonate with me today from life's experiences.
Wait, Dom, I want to add one. One of the things I wanted to add is, oh my goodness,
She get to add one, I get to
doing
add
something. Here we go. Doing something because it's what everybody else doing. Like, I am one of the biggest nonconformists, right? Like, society teaches you to roll with the flow, like rolling with the flow, roll with the flow, roll with the flow. I have literally never been a flow roller. I couldn't even tell you what the flow is supposed to look like. Like, that's not who I am. So I think that's one of the things that does not align with me and has never aligned with me. I was just talking about this, about how we follow along with society rules and how we operate within society, because that's what we've always been told. It just doesn't make sense. And it's not something that aligns with who I am. Like, so many people, so many women, I'm going to say women. So many women believe that you're supposed to.
You went out, Jakima. She'll be back. Probably. See, that's why I don't want to chime in, because as soon as I chime in, she's gonna be right back. So, but let's test that. So, what I would add is don't always try to be there for everybody. You know, you got people who need things, and you trying to be helpful. Because you believe that loyalty to your friends and people. Sometimes you got to be able to say no. I forgot who it was. Somebody was saying that when you try to be there for other people, you're setting yourself aside. You're setting things that you need to be doing aside, one, and then two, you're taking on their problems. And the analogy that I recall hearing was that if somebody calls you and says, "Hey, can you take me to the airport?" And as a matter of fact, Ice-T said this.
Yep, I
Ice-T
remember
said
that.
it. He was like, if you say, "Yeah, I'll take you to the airport," that means you gotta be there on time to pick this person up, to take them to the airport. And if they miss their flight, it's your fault. But if you show up on time and now they're not ready, they jump into the passenger seat and put their bag in the back seat, and now you got to rush to the airport, try to get them there on time, right? You've taken on the entire responsibility of them being able to travel. And no matter how late they are in getting your car, they're not going to accept blame and be like, "Oh man, it's going to be like you made me late for my flight." So you got to be careful on what you want to take on. You got to be careful with what you set aside with regard to time that you could be using to do for yourself. And you have to be careful with how much troubles of other folks you decide to take on, because ultimately that blame is, if it don't go well, it's going to rest on you.
No, for sure. But go ahead. I want you to go ahead. You can go ahead and say what you was going to say.
Okay, sorry. The people keep calling me. I'm a popular girl, I guess. So what I was going to say is, society teaches us as women that we are supposed to, the goal is to be married, right? And I'm not pushing one way or the other, but I think society teaches us that the goal is to be married. And so I think that is why subconsciously so many women deal with things that really shouldn't, because they're trying to get to the end game, because that's what society says is supposed to happen. And it's not just about relationships, it's in general, like these societal rules. Some of them work, but some of them don't. But altogether, I feel like, who told you that was the right way? Who said that's the right way? Like, societal rules in general, for me, like, I'm not a conformist. There are some things that I just won't do, like falling in line with certain things and rolling with certain flows. It's like, I'm not rolling with that flow. It doesn't make sense for me to go roll with that flow. Like, if you want me to do it, tell me why. And I realize when you ask why, there's nobody to really tell you why, except that's the way it's always been done. And that's the way it's always been done doesn't mean it's been done the right way. So those are the things that I would say I will push back against, things I've been taught that don't align with me, who I am.
No, absolutely. So okay, so with that, because I do know, and I'm not trying to get all into the relationship part, but I would say when it comes to women, I think it starts early. I know. Here we go. But it's it's legitimately like a fairy tale that is put into some of the women. I think for me and my generation, I think it started with Disney, but that's my personal opinion. But I think it's I think it's like a fairy tale, like, oh, like women will have these expectations in their mind and they don't necessarily know. The guy doesn't know, but they had an expectation in their mind. So it's perfect, kind of like what you said, how society teach you, and it's like you have to be married and this, that. What goes to all these other things. So it's like kind of like we said, where does it come from? Because I think a lot of some of the females, even some of the young girls, are somewhat lost because they have that in their mind. And then on the other spectrum, when it comes to guys, we don't think like we don't be thinking that deep into like how you guys would think. I know obviously like we're wired different as far as how the woman mind go and how a man minds go, but I'm just interested because you brought that up and that was just interesting.
So I'm gonna ask this question though: is it the woman's fault who for having this princess ideology, or is it the man or men or boys for not being taught prince ideology?
Ooh, so all right, I got an answer for that. Believe it or not, right? And I think it comes down to a couple things. I think we are a people, and Jakeem, we had this conversation how we discuss ancestors, we discuss legacy, we discuss tradition. However, we have a fracture in African American traditions, right? One, some of the traditions that we have, stem from bondage, and then some other traditions that we speak about, we don't have the elders there to teach us, right? So our traditions were interrupted by mass incarceration, as well, taking men out of the household and putting women in a survive rather than thrive environment. So our traditions have, in essence, crumbled, so to speak. So you have it as far as the men's fault for not living up to manhood, and these situations where women are raising young boys and don't necessarily, a man can't raise a girl and show her how to be a woman, and a woman can't raise a man to show him how to be a man. You can say you can say in theory, this is what you should do. This is what I believe you should do. But as far as, firsthand, it's like, it's a mechanic. I'm not a mechanic. I can tell you how I think you should work on a car, but a mechanic will tell you exactly how to do it with confidence. But then I also think that the unrealistic expectations creates a fault on the women's side about, being a princess, because you have some women who want to be treated like a princess, but they don't reciprocate that in treating a young man like a prince, because it takes two. So I really believe that a lot of that is because of our traditions have crumbled because of absence of key parties, and because of surviving rather than thriving environments.
So I'm not going to dispute any of that. That was a little too deep.
Because you can't.
I can, but I'm not going to dispute any of that. That was a little too deep for right now. What I'm going to go back to is saying this: there's a difference in the way women are brought up and perceived in society, and a difference the way men are brought up and perceived in society, and this has nothing to do with race. I'm going to put that out there. From my perspective, I think men are taught that they are supposed to be the provider, I guess. And then the woman is supposed to do everything else. That's one of those societal rules, like, but where did that come from? That's what I'm saying. Like, what, like, for this instance, right? women are taught what not to wear to get the wrong attention. Why aren't boys taught not to rape, not to look at somebody in a certain way? Like there is a fundamental difference in the way women are brought up to navigate the world than men are brought up to navigate the world. And then we become adults, and these thoughts that we have been separated and brought up in with these unconscious, I'll say, teachings, subconscious teachings, that we come up and we are groomed in these ways. And that's where this ideology of, like, I guess, as Dom said, like this princess treatment is it's coming from, and not coming from. But it's a difference in the way. Why aren't men being taught to be these prince? You if you were being taught to be a prince, and I'm being taught that this is what a princess expects, I think we'll be more aligned. But society just doesn't operate that way. And while I agree with the African American culture and all those things, I think this is across the board.
Yeah, but so I want to touch. So I wrote down 3 things I want to touch on. One, what masculinity is also being delegitimized and restructured. So masculine, what it means to be masculine, I think it's being perverted. I don't think being masculine needs to mean that you are going to the gym and you walking around with your chest out and you don't let nobody mess with you. But masculinity also means opening the door for a lady. Masculinity also means, running her bath water. Or having dinner ready. Masculinity means, taking her car and gassing it up and vacuuming it out, but it's oftentimes that when men do those things, it's not appreciated either. Right. And then, you have the phrase toxic masculinity, which I think is a derivative of the feminist movement, which I don't think has done women much credit either. That has really foggied up what it means to be a man, right? But on the other side of that, there is some good there. There is the good that, men can seek mental health care. Men don't have to bottle up emotions. It is okay to cry. So there's that blend there. So I don't even know if I'm disagreeing with you on that point, but I think that that's something that needs to be considered. The other thing is media. And I don't think that you can separate race out of this, because you have a lot of media that is telling our young Black boys, especially in the absence of fathers, of what it looks like to be a Black man. I think that, so if you go and watch the Hallmark Channel, right, you don't really see, Black men being the prince in shining armor, or that Black men are in healthy relationships. I mean, Tyler Perry makes his entire, makes his money off of dysfunctional Black families and Black relationships. So I don't think that there is, I think that the media plays a role. I think there are, rap music tears things apart. And then if you look at when movies cast Black actors are receive significant criticism. I mean, there's that Ironheart series that just came out on Disney, and that little girl is being faced with significant amount of racism, and she's part of canon in Marvel Comics. So there's that. And then the last thing I'll add is that the notion of adolescence, right, is there's a book called Rage Against Innocence that talks about how some children are allowed to make it through this level of adolescence that still results in brain forming, and they're being told there's an absolutely different way that the courts treat young Black boys and young white boys. You have cases where young white males go to college and they commit rape, and the judges have specifically said that they can see themselves in the defendant, and they get a really light sentence. Oftentimes no jail time, and that victim is left, in awe of how the justice system has treated her sexual assault. And that's, say that's between the ages of, say 17 to 25, right? But then for young Black boys who will go in front of the court for the exact same thing, because the judges don't see themselves in them, they give them the harshest punishment. So it comes down to how masculinity is treated and how it's being defined. I think that how the media portrays how black folks, young black boys, black men, and also how black artists put themselves out there, and also think it's the way that adolescence is treated differently in with regard to race in America that has a huge impact on those things that you talked about. I was long. I apologize.
No. Those are all really good points. Because I had to come back to you. The question I was gonna ask Shakima, because you said a lot and my mind is still, formulating. But I guess when you said you want, like, guys don't know how to be a prince, the question would be, well, what is a prince? What does that mean? What does that mean for, because women are different. So a prince can mean something to someone else. So realistically, what does that mean?
So wait, so I'm very specific. I didn't say guys don't know how to be a prince. I want to make sure that's not what I said. I said, why aren't they being taught to be a prince? Because what you said is that women get this princess thoughts from Disney, right? And so my rebuttal was, well, why aren't men getting that same thing? Why aren't boys learning that same thing? So I don't know what prince. I can say what I want or what my expectations are, but I can't tell you what being a prince consists of, because, like you said, I'm just going to base it off of what my perspective is.
You know why? There's no black princes in Disney.
This is going beyond.
No. I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that Disney shows little girls about what a princess looks like, right?
You're right, but I will say
black male prince, right? Because I want to make sure I'm saying princes plural, right? There's no black male princes in Disney. There's no media showing us how to be princes.
I agree with that, but I'm in my 40s, right? There was no Disney princess. Don't do that. There was no Disney princess. The Disney princess came about in 2010, 2009, 2006. Princess Tiana. Yeah, she was the first Disney princess. And I may be misquoting the year, but I'm almost certain it was somewhere between 2006 and 2009. Before then, there was
you're talking about black female princesses.
Yes, princesses. But what you're trying to say, because what your argument is, black boys aren't princes because they weren't shown them. That's the argument you're making, correct?
No, what I'm saying. So let me. I want to clarify. Is that there aren't any real black majority characters anywhere. Right? So at least little black girls were able to see how a princess is supposed to act, because in America, white characters are generalized, right? There was no. You have plenty of princesses in Disney, right? And little girls look at those princesses. Like, white girls would buy they would get white Barbies. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? For the prince, even in the Disney movies, the Disney movies don't focus on the prince; they focus on the princess. So not only is the prince not a focus, there is also no, not even an attempt of a person of color as a prince, right? At least in Aladdin, you had Jasmine, right? Snow White, Belle. Right, the Beast was the male star in that, right? So there's a whole list of princesses that even black girls can attach themselves to as the main character. There aren't any for black men, for boys.
And I may be reaching. This is my opinion. But even when you look at the Beast was dark colored. So he was aggressive, and he was all these things until he turned white.
That's true.
And then everything kind of stimulates. So it's like, you got to think about that. Even when it comes to Little Mermaid, Ursula was what was it called?
A squid, dark purple and black.
It was dark purple, right? But what does that represent, though? You get what I'm saying? So it's a lot of these different depictions. As you get older, you start to look at it like, hold on, but it's always, like I said, don't want to make it a white and black thing, but it's just is what it is. It's always been the white Prince Charming. There hasn't been anything to even show anything positive remotely when it comes to black men. And you got to think it starts at a young age. So if little kids are seeing that and they're growing up, and it's like a lot of the stuff is fairy tale. So when I ask the question when it comes to fairy tale, it's always, and I remember being high school girls, oh, I'm gonna be with him forever. It's gonna be happy ever. It doesn't unfortunately work that way, but that's what sometimes the way they receive whatever they're watching. Because like he said, I think that media, whether it's Disney movies or any movies in general, play a role in how um we will probably perceive ourselves, because we look at that and go from there. But go ahead.
So I'm just gonna say one final thing on this topic because this is a spicy one. Um, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm not disputing that there may be some princess ties somewhere in there that maybe cultivated this desire for us to be treated as such. Or I'm gonna say this to you guys, or who's to say it's not from the women that we had in our life that were raising us to aspire to get what they didn't have, this treatment that they weren't, either they were receiving or they weren't, and so they set these expectations in us so that we'll aspire to get that. Who's to say that's not the case?
Oh, I agree. I think that's very much the case. But I think that we've also haven't been receiving honesty about these long lasting relationships, right? Some of these long lasting relationships, people who've been married for a long time, they don't talk about the violence that was in that relationship. They don't talk about the cheating.
Perry, you are determined to talk about all the ugly stuff. I see it. Go ahead.
But no. I guess what I'm saying is that inside these long lasting relationships is the ugly stuff,
I
right?
agree.
And so when you're teaching these little girls about, this is all the good stuff, when the ugly stuff, which is reality, happens to them, they don't know how to handle it. It goes back to what Don was saying. When you bump into adversity, how do you handle it? We're not taught how to handle that adversity. We're taught that, the relationship leads to a house with a white picket fence and everything is good. He comes home and you make him dinner and he sits down and he rubs your feet and this, that, and the other. They don't talk about the ugly part of the relationship. So young ladies don't know how to handle when that prince is not princely.
Do men know how to handle when the princess wants to be treated as such? Like we're gonna stop doing this like women don't know how to handle stuff.
No, and I agree with you. And I said that's one of those fractured traditions because of mass incarceration. This is the United States of America. It's really difficult for me to separate race from a lot of things that have happened. I grew up. I'm 48 years old, right? And okay, Jakima, okay, but I mean, I'm old enough to remember when my stepdad had to run out the back door because the social worker came. So it's like, being a man in this country, man, there's a whole, we could talk about it. We could have a whole podcast discussion about how Black masculinity has been torn down, and continue to be torn down, historically and presently.
I agree, Dom. You clocking that?
Yes. I got that. Oh man, no, it's no what he's saying. At least I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna even touch the relationship part. But I will say when it comes to the masculinity, it like I'm watching it when it comes to movies being turned down. And it's not to say, because I do think there's an equal when it comes to, man and female. So I don't want to say that, but just watching from different things to where man was pretty much kind of dominant. And I do think women do deserve certain things, but even looking at just in movies, you starting to see males who will pretty much take the higher role, rather it's the Black Panther, rather it's just this different thing. You start to see the women are at the forefront, like as the main hero. So, and I'm just saying that when it comes to the masculinity, that could be a lot of different things. But I'm just saying I've seen it on that front, just when it comes to watching things and how you see more men as being somewhat more feminine, and then the woman are being more masculine than the actual man. So
Y'all real spicy today. I don't know what y'all had what y'all had to eat for
well,
breakfast.
no, but I'm just saying that's just in the media. That's just what I'm saying. I'm seeing. That's it. I just gave you an example when it came to Black Panther.
That
All
is
I'm
true.
saying is when you just look at certain things, you start to just wonder like, that's interesting how you start to see the dynamics start to change and the roles start to change. That's all.
I don't disagree with you. The only thing I will say is so often though, when we see these changes, we attribute it to the people who are performing the change versus the stimuli that created it. And so all I'm going to say is as we talk about that, let's look at where it came from. What contributed to it? Like why the shift? What made it happen? Because I'm not gonna sit here and say it's not happening. It absolutely is happening. It has been happening for quite some time, at least a decade, maybe more. Maybe I'm gonna say probably my whole life. It's been culminating up to this point. Back to Carrie said about when the man was removed from the house to get certain resources, you couldn't have a man living with you. So he talked about how his stepfather had to run out of the house because the social worker came. So it's been culminating probably for the most of our lives, us on this call for our whole life, culminating up to this point where the roles, I'm not going to say they have been reversed, but they are there's a shift occurring, and I don't think it's favorable for anyone.
That's fair.
Can
Okay.
I want to do something. This is just real quick. Is You talked about Black Panther. I'm telling you, Ryan Coogler is so important to the culture. Because I mean, what he did with Black Panther and why it was so great is that it was phenomenal. It didn't degrade the strength of the Black woman at all, and it also showed the I think the healthy masculinity of the Black man. Um, and then I just want to put and this isn't my book, so this isn't necessarily a plug, but there's a book called The Life of Louise Norton Little, an Extraordinary Woman, mother of Malcolm X. And when Malcolm X's father was killed, the United States government was trying to give her financial assistance, and she would not take it. And they made it seem like she was losing her mind. She was admitted into a mental asylum. And there's questions about whether or not she experienced a true mental break, or was it a result of stress of basically the United States government trying to force her to take some aid and be dependent on them. And keep in mind, Malcolm X's father was assassinated by the KKK, and it's the pressure that historically has been on Black women not to have a Black man, right? And to emasculate the Black man. I just don't think that you can ignore it. And I go back to, that's why a person like Ryan Coogler, in Black Panther and Sinners, to tell our stories responsibly. And the last thing I'll say is that when you look at a lot of these TV shows and a lot of these movies, the Black character is usually gay. The Black male character in a lot of these shows is gay. And I'm not homophobic or anything like that. But I'm just saying, like, this is it's a role that is I think it's overutilized in media. So either we're gangsters and killers, or we're gay, and it's just, where's the normalcy?
So I'm going to flip that on its coin and say, for women, we are either Black women, we are either overtly strong, which, by the way, I hate that narrative, strong Black woman. I hate it with a passion, because what it has done is desensitize the whole society to a Black woman's pain. The whole Black woman experience has been desensitized because of that strong Black woman phrase. So I'm going to say that. But in the movies, we are either too strong or too soft and being abused. There is no medium.
Yeah. We'd open a can of worms.
Yeah, no, we did.
That's you and Dom.
No, man.
No. Because what you just said, that's very true when you think about it, and that's why when it comes to me, when as kids when we're watching certain things, like I was just talking to someone, watching Color Purple or watching certain things. Was it? I can't remember. What's the one with when Tina Turner? But it's like you're seeing these
What's
different
love got
things.
to
Now,
do?
yeah, and obviously it's portraying, different things. But as kids been watching, I was talking, they was like, "Well, I thought I was this person based off of how they watched it so many times, and they end up kind of going through some of the similar situations, which is very profound because when you think about it, a lot of stuff can be psychological. You get what I'm saying? So it's like I do think like watching movies and all that stuff has a role to play, unfortunately, in society. So, but yeah, we're gonna close the can of worms for now. Um, have you guys ever believed in something just to survive, but later realized it wasn't true?
I went first last time. Carrie, you up?
So something that I have always said, and I'm trying to redefine it currently as I sit here, is I have this saying, everything's going to be okay because it has to, and I have recently discovered that saying comes from a period of trauma in my life, right? Everything is going to be okay. It has to. Trouble don't last always, right? Um, is kind of like that's a way of kind of like collapsing under that trouble and just kind of waiting it out, waiting the storm out a little bit. When sometimes when that storm is coming, you don't necessarily need to wait it out. You need to do some things to power through it, to bring it to an end faster. So it's new. I don't know enough to speak on it, but I want to be transparent here because it is something that I have absolutely relied on in times, and I need to redefine that.
So I'm gonna piggyback and say the same thing. Like, there's several of them for me, right? Good things come to those who wait,
Mm.
which I think absolutely boils down to timing, right? That it because my perspective had to shift because to me, good things come to those who wait sounds very much passive, where I'm an action oriented person. So it's like I'm supposed to wait and do what? Um, so that's something I struggle with my whole life. Now, timing is a real thing, so I understand that things boil down to timing, but I wish there was a way of saying that to make it sound more action oriented versus passing. But the thing that I think I was taught to believe that I don't really believe is this whole notion of being strong as a Black woman. It is, do I feel like I am, have been through some things that probably would have broken most? Yes. So is there some truth to it? Yes. But has it done more damage to me as a woman than good? I guess that's up for debate. I wouldn't know because I can only know what I've experienced. And because of this strong Black woman, you know, we can handle it. We can do it. That is who my mother was. That is who I am. That is probably who my daughter is going to be. And I'm not saying that by any means I want to be weak. Or feeble, but what it has taught me is to not deal with my emotions appropriately, because I have to keep going. I got to keep going, not to deal with what's happening in the present because I got to push, I got to push, I got to push. And there's nothing wrong with pushing, but when you are bottling up, it's going to come out at some point. And so that's something that isn't taught to us. Those are the things that I'll say for me.
Okay. And lastly, because you know we got to get to our busy days. If you could leave one proven lesson, what would it be, and how has it shaped your sense of purpose or self-worth?
For me, if I can leave one lesson, a lesson for me is something I've learned, and I won't say I'm on the other side of this one that I'm going to bring up, but it's something that it's the biggest lesson for me is the people who you care about the most is going to remember everything. And so those closest to you remember what you showed up for, what you wasn't there for. So my lesson will be being present. Um, I have been employed since I was 15 years old, and I allowed my work ethic. Like I have a great work ethic. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm this, and that is all true. But in building that work ethic, I was so present at work that I didn't realize I wasn't as present at home. And now that I'm in a situation where I'm a little more present at home, I'm able to see that my lack of presence hurted someone I love more than it should have because I was too blind to see it. So my lesson will be, don't forget to be present. Try to be present more often than not.
So I'm going to take this opportunity to give two. The first one is, give 80 to 85% to other people, like an employer or something. Give 100%, 150% to yourself. Giving 100% at the job, that doesn't necessarily get you anywhere. I think most people don't give 100%. If you give 80 to 85%, and then every now and then give 100, I think that's plenty. But when you are doing something for you, give 110%. I say that because I think that we will work really hard for somebody else, but we will not work that hard for ourselves. And at the end of the day, you live off of the fruit that you bear. So I think that aligns with what Jakeem was saying about being present. You can be far too present at the job, making somebody else money, and not be present, at home or in your own business, which leads to sacrifice. So I think that's important. And then the other one is having a real understanding of responsibility, how responsible you are to other people. We kind of talked about being there for other people, taking on other people's problems, and having an understanding of responsibility and what it really means to you individually, as a man or a woman, I think is really important. And I think that's something that only a person can define for themselves.
Wait, I got one more. This one is really important. I promise. It's gonna be short. In all that we do, in all that we get, if you have to give something to get something, and that's just true about everything, right? Like, so let's say in a relationship, when you paint your perfect person, they're always gonna have something that you don't want, but there's somebody else who has that something that you want. Do you give up everything to get that one thing? You always going to have to give up something to get something. It's just a matter of what are you willing to give up to get that. That's a lesson that I had to learn as well.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Mr. Kerry Howard and Ms. Jakima. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. That's a wrap on Open Enough to Listen. Whether you agree, disagree, just drop in the comments if you like it. And you guys have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.
You too.